And we've been bringing to our community here, design, construction, and real estate, updates. And the latest updates are Vancouver's got some new updates. Burnaby has been launched for about a year now. Coquitlam's the latest thing. They just launched it in July. So we're going to dive a bit more into that. And then we'll share with you some multiplex case studies because now we've got quite a few on the docket. So I want to share with you that, and just so you get an idea of all the different ways that you can do a multiplex. And then those of you who have been to our webinars before know that there's an offer at the end, which is only exclusive to those who attend here. So we're going to share that with you. And of course, at the end, we'll have a Q&A. So let's dive into that. Okay, this is mine, right, Bruce?
Yes,
okay.
It is. It's yours.
All right, so I'm going to zoom through this part because most of you are in the industry, I believe, so you know about this. But for those who are newish, you'll hear buzzwords like missing middle. What the heck is that, right? So missing middle is basically the type of housing between the towers and the single family home. City was trying to address density through soft densification, so not towers everywhere, but then it's unsustainable to have single family homes everywhere either. So they said, okay, let's do laneway houses, let's do duplexes, let's do multiplexes now, 6 to 8 units, or up to 6 to 8 units. That's what missing middle is. You'll also hear the words multiplex, SSMUH. In Surrey and out in the valley, they're using other words like houseplex.
Houseplex, yeah.
Houseplex. So you're going to hear all these different terms. We want to just educate you a little bit. We like the term multiplex a lot. That's a Vancouver term. SSMUH is province-wide. And it's all really to do with the same thing, which is to address the missing middle housing.
Yeah, SSMUH, just for clarification, stands for small scale multi-unit housing.
Yes. And basically, the city's vision is to have the neighborhood look like this bottom photo here, where the scale and the mass is similar to the old single-family home, but now you have more units in there. So that's the future vision of Lower Mainland. Okay, well, who could live in a multiplex? You know, personally, I'm quite excited about this because it opens up so many possibilities with this multiplex form. So let's look at some typical ones that clients have been coming into us for, our realtor partners have been approaching us for, and we also do development. So a lot of this would be our end users, the end buyers. Midlife adults, those who are near empty nesting or have empty nested, right, with the adult kids moved out. Great for them because they don't need such a big home. Their kids are moved out. Really, it's just a couple. So they don't want to be cleaning so much. They're downsizing, right? So great. They still have a small unit themselves. They don't need a whole house with a big yard, grass to cut. That's one typical demographic. Also, the working professional, the first-time buyers. We find that, I guess, maybe it's that second step, right, Bruce? You got if you haven't bought a home before, you're buying probably a condo. This would be the next step up. You can't really get to a house yet, so this is that nice intermediate step for that working couple that's still saving up and they want to upgrade from the condo. This makes a lot of sense. And then you've got the growing family, multi-child household. So, you know, you're asking yourself, well, won't they want a house? Yes, but with the prices in Vancouver these days, they wish they can have a house. This is the better option if they can't afford it. Now, the nice thing about multiplex is there's no set rule to say that you have to divide all units equally. We're doing quite a few where the end user clients coming into us and saying, this is my project, I'm designing, I want you to design one custom unit for myself, larger with all the custom amenities that I want. And then the balance of the space, well, that's for rental or that's for selling, all of that stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. The nice thing is these are rental mortgage helpers, right? Or you can stratify it and sell off one unit to help fund the construction. So there's lots of options there.
Definitely lots of options. And I think one thing in Eric and I's generation, it was expected that we go get jobs, buy a house, single family, and that was sort of the expectation. I think as the younger people grow, I think that sort of expectation is coming down. And a lot of people are satisfied and don't have an ambition to own that single family. And I think the landscape of this is going to continue to change that, especially with the cost of real estate in Vancouver and surrounding areas.
Right. Okay, and then the last kind of typical scenario, I'm not saying this is all of it, but these are very typical. Seniors age in place. We can design a nice ground floor unit. They don't ever have to deal with stairs. Actually, my mother-in-law just bought into a unit where there's minimal stairs and she loves it, right? So this is for seniors that just want accessibility. They don't need a big space, not much clean. They can have a garden suite and they're happy. So that's the multiplex scenario. Let's look at the site eligibility. Bruce, why don't you take us through Vancouver?
Sure. Clicking it. Okay, so this is pretty much the same as it's been for a while, but for those of you who are new, it must be in the R11 zoning. This was previously all the RS zones. They combined them all to that simplification into R11. Consolidation or assembly of sites is not permitted, and really you don't want to assemble sites anyway, because if you're basically going to restrict yourself further if you make 2 or 3 lots into one. It just doesn't make sense. You're going to basically do one project per lot.
Yeah, there's no advantage to a larger site.
No, and but subdivision is permitted. This was something that was previously being discouraged by COB, but is now being permitted. So obviously each lot has to meet the minimum criteria. But if you say had a 66-foot lot in Vancouver, by 120, you could easily subdivide that, assuming it's allowed, into 233 by 120, and then do 4 units on each. Vehicular access to the lane. So this is one that's particular to Vancouver. They still require a lane. If it's located on a corner served by an open or dedicated lane, that's also allowed, or is double fronting. Some people have been asking about corner lots in Vancouver without a lane, and the answer is no. Okay. Site frontage. Again, this has not changed. Minimum frontage is 10 meters or 32.8 feet. Minimum depth is 99.7. This would be for that single building configuration. And if you want that courtyard configuration with 2 buildings, one front and one rear, you need to be at least 33.5 or 109.9 feet. In depth, yeah. And they are very, very picky on this in Vancouver. There's really no opportunity for relaxation. So just be aware that whatever they have in these rules, they're fairly permissive. But if you're off by even 0.1 feet, we've not seen them have any relaxations whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Heritage, so obviously does not contain a heritage designated building, interior or landscape. Please note that heritage, if it's there, will be on title. We're not talking about a building that has character merit. Those are eligible for multiplex still. Floodplain, not in the floodplain. And we've got a map here showing you where the floodplains are. Majority of it is in the Southlands, but there are a few other areas in Vancouver that are in a floodplain. And if you're unsure, there's a map where you can reach out to us, and we're happy to confirm with you on that. This is a few new items on the site constraints. So existing trees are off-site. So when they first started the multiplex in Vancouver, they were quite permissive with the trees, but now they're getting a little more restrictive. And we had one project in particular where they were quite pedantic about trees and relocations and things like that. So just be aware that trees are definitely a consideration, and you want to be looking at those, especially if you haven't already purchased the property. If you own the property, that's different, but if you're about to purchase it, trees are definitely a big consideration. So on-site trees that the city landscaping department wants to retain, and off-site trees adjacent properties with root zones encroaching building envelope could limit proposed size and configuration. And sometimes it's a matter too of how good you know your neighbors and things like that. But just because a tree's not on your property does not mean that it's not something that needs to be considered. And of course, hydro. This has been a hot topic lately. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of clarifications from hydro. For years, apparently, a lot of the cities were allowing things that hydro was actually against their regulations, and they've been much more pedantic about enforcing those. So again, hydro lines are a big one, and we want to make sure that we can, do what you want to do with the property. Again, especially if you haven't purchased a property. If you own it, you're already there. But if you're thinking of buying a property, these are big considerations. Okay. So site configurations and requirements. This is just kind of that typical example of a 4 unit on a standard lot. We've got 3 units in the front, 1 unit in the rear. Obviously, in this case, we have a lot that's say 33 by 122 or 120. We can have with parking in the back. We can have a bike shed. Could have 2 parking. Maybe that PMT, which is a pad-mounted transformer. Oftentimes we're seeing though that with electrical engineering, you can get away without the pad-mounted transformer, but usually it's best in the preliminary design to allow for it. And then if you get lucky, you don't need it, that's great. And then also the detention tank in the front yard, which the city is now actually giving us a chart in terms of the size that's required for the tank. You can see on the left there with the lot size and the size of the actual tank required. And those detention tanks are basically just to prevent overloading of the city storm and sewer system, because Vancouver, unfortunately, is still in a lot of areas on a combined sanitary and storm system. And during the heavy rains, the system can get overloaded, and that can cause all kinds of problems for the city's infrastructure. Okay, and I'm just having trouble going forward here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so new tree planting. Multiplexes will be encouraged to either retain trees in the front yard or replace trees, and one tree for standard and 2 for larger lots. Again, even though the word is encouraged, they're being quite strongly encouraging, maybe the good word to use. So the trees are definitely something you'll have to work through. And again, mentioning that pad mounted transformer, which until Hydro does their design, you won't know whether you actually need it or not. But 3 units or less, good chance you might not. 4 units or more, probably need it. But there has been some 4-unit projects that we've done recently that we were lucky and didn't have to have it. And again, that's all up to Hydro's infrastructure, whether they have the capacity to support your project.
Right.
Okay. Density. So again, this one is not new. They're charging a density bonus for the multiplexes in Vancouver. Basically, they're come from was it's 0.7 we're giving you if it was a duplex, so there's no contribution required if you're going below 0.7 or up to 0.7, and anything above 0.7, so that 30% between the 0.7 to 1.0, they're going to be charging that bonus density, and they've decided that people in the West have more money, so they're charging them more. Yes. And you can see we've got sub area A, which is shown on the left west of Oak, and then sub area B, and then the rest of it is C. So small lots, again, 33s, they're just charging what they're calling a nominal fee of $3 per square foot. And again, to be clear, they're charging $3 per square foot above the 70% to the 100%. So if you did, for example, only 90%, you'd only pay the 0.2 times your lot area times that $3. Bigger lots, they're charging more. You can see that, yeah, at the high end in area A, they are charging $140 per square foot above that 70%. And we've seen some very hefty fees. I think we have one right now, which is almost $400,000. That being said, $140 a square foot, sellable real estate in Vancouver, probably minimum, on the west side, minimum $1,200, depending on where it is, could be a lot more. So, the $140 a square foot usually makes sense. There is 2 alternative ways to not pay the density fee, which I'll jump into, and that's a single below market home ownership option. However, we actually haven't seen anyone do this yet, so I think that it probably doesn't seem to make economic sense, as we just aren't seeing people do it. And keep in mind that they're not allowing you to do any ultra small units. They're supposed to be kind of family friendly. So if you say the average unit was 800 square feet, or minimum size was 800 square feet, then you'd be giving up, 400 square feet of sellable area at, say 1,200. That's almost $500,000. So in most cases, I don't believe that this is going to be an option that people are using. Could be wrong. Let's see what happens. But again, I don't think have you heard of anyone doing it?
No, because the basic math to this is they're saying that if you sell one of your units at below market, which is 50% or less, then you don't have to pay the fees. Now, realtors out there do the math for me, right? Half of a unit in Vancouver is still much more than this DCC fee. So I'd pay the DCC fee.
Yeah. And the other option is the secured rental, which does give you access to the CMHC, I think MLI Select funding program. Again, we've run some scenarios for people, and it just doesn't seem to make sense. Just with the price of real estate in Vancouver, you probably would need to be something like 50% equity into a project like this to have it cash flow. Again, there might be people who want to do that, but we're just not seeing a lot of it. So we're seeing them in, so far everyone that we've seen is just paying the bonus density fee. Okay, so restricted zones. So RT7, RT9, and of course for Shaughnessy.
Yeah, so this is a bit of an update for those who haven't been following it. When R11 came out, Multiplex, it was only for R11 zones. Recently, probably maybe 6-8 months ago, they said, okay, RT7, RT9, and First Shaughnessy District can also do a form of multiplex.
Okay, so basically, yeah, they're allowing it here with a few extra restrictions, especially in FSD. So 3 to 4 units, similar to the kind of the R11 zoning requirements. And the character retention is not required. Density and floor space ratio. So RT7 and RT9, they're giving you the same as the R11, which is 1.0. And a few specific inclusions for mechanical interior stairwells, a little bit different than the other zoning. And FSD, though, however, is capped at 0.5. And most people are aware that all of the FSD lots are generally very large lots, which maybe is why they decided to cap it at a lower FSR. And then there's a couple options. All units 4 to 8 are secured as residential tenure, except that one dwelling unit may be occupied by an owner, or all 4 to 6 units where at least one unit is developed at below market home ownership unit. So they're not charging in the FSD, they're not charging the bonus density fee, obviously, because they're under 0.7, but they've got a couple of restrictions there. Similar kind of restrictions, limited to 3-story, except parking must be provided at grade level. And if developing a single family or 2-family duplex in zoning areas, the character retention may apply. Demolishing a character home may limit density or stratification, and retaining a character home that can allow a bonus floor area for extra units. And more design review and heritage evaluation for anyone who's gone through the FSD design process. It's very long and arduous process. So just be aware of that. It's usually best for those specific ones to, if you need more detail, reach out to us and we can kind of give you a better assessment. FSD is still fairly complicated to get through.
Yeah, we recently did one. It's a heritage home, complete reno, complete gut, and we had to deal with First Nazi district, the most restrictive district in there. So it's possible, just a lot of things to deal with. Now, why they're so, I guess, sensitive about this, the character and all that stuff, is because RT9, RT7, and First Nazi traditionally have been where a lot of the heritage homes are. So they want to still preserve that, right? It's not like the R11 where most of it were the RS zones, and there's not much character and stuff. So that's why it's a little bit more tricky.
And of course, there's a whole bunch of exemptions. So properties protected under the Heritage Conservation Act aren't eligible designated heritage, and all those ones, some large lots and a few other ones there. So, okay. And streamlined permit processing for multiplex projects. Vancouver likes to change their rules and regulations every other week. So the new one is that they're come up with a streamlined permitting process. And basically what that does is it allows for some configurations, 4 units or less than no more than 2 units in a single building, to go through a streamlined permit process where you would submit the DP and BP at the same time. And so it's going to be faster, more predictable processing expected and tailored to meet the needs of the project. Our experience has not been this so far. They've actually made a mistake on one of the applications we just did, but hopefully they get into the rhythm of it and get everything working well. So less documentation required overall, and the fees are estimated up front, which is really nice. And I think there's another page where you have a few estimated fees. Only applies if the site is R11, RT7, RT9 zone. And again, the project is exactly 3 to 4 units split across. The main thing is no more than 2 units in a single building. That being said, it may still make sense to apply for the DP separately. You can get the package ready sooner, and then you get the benefit of having any feedback from the city if there is any major changes that the city is requiring. I think the longer this has been running, the more predictable it's going to be, and you know, maybe eventually they were even talking about getting rid of the whole DP application process for the multiplex, but probably that's not going to happen in the near future. Okay. And here's just an estimate showing the fees that you can get online.
This is, I would say this is one benefit of this kind of expedited process, although time-wise, you can submit both permits together, which is nice. But one great benefit here is for all of our realtor partners. You can actually, if your project falls into that criteria, you can actually go through this website, punch in a bunch of stuff, and then it'll spit up an estimate soft cost for you, what their fees will be, including DCCs, permit fees, all of that stuff. So at least now you can tell your clients, hey, it's going to be roughly this much. So that's the nice thing about this newer process here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, so let's jump into Burnaby. There's a lot to cover here, and we are trying to make it as simple and as layman as possible. If you have a specific case, or if you have something trickier, or if you don't understand any of this, come talk to us privately. We'll kind of have more time and space to dive into technicalities. Now let's talk about Burnaby. So Burnaby launched it last summer. So they're about a year old in their multiplex, or they call it SSMUH. So this is actually a project that we're doing right now for a builder client. It's more of they're coining this the cottage design. So it's like separate buildings, 4 separate buildings, 2 of which are duplexes, or like 2 units, and 2 are more single units, all with attached garage. So quite a nice project, actually. We're excited about that. But basically, in Burnaby, low density residential is all R1s. So if you're looking for a lot for your client, or if you got a lot yourself, look for the R1s. 3 to 6 units are allowed per lot based on lot size and how close you are to transit. If you get close to the frequent transit network, you can get up to 6 units. And I'll show you a map later. They removed the whole FSR restriction limitation, which is awesome. So basically, as much as you can squeeze within the side and front and rear setbacks and the height, you can do it. And from a density perspective, we've actually calculated, I'll show you later, Burnaby actually gives you more density than any other city so far because of this. So that's really exciting. Principal dwelling units can be stratified. You just can't stratify a secondary suite. Lane access is not required. That's nice because in Vancouver, you have to have lane access. In this, actually, this unit, this project, there's a lane. But yeah, even if you have no lane access, you can still do something in Burnaby. Off-street parking are relaxed, especially if you're close to the frequent transit network. There is a minimum lot size for subdivision and row house developments. Row house, I'll show you a diagram, is something unique to Burnaby, although none of my clients have went for that. So let's look at this here. This is the frequent transit network. So on the left, you will see this is actually, sorry, on the right is the frequent transit network. Basically, how they define it is, okay. So what we're trying to show you here is if you go into Burnaby map, which is their GIS, and you punch in the address, it will actually show you how many units. This is nice, not like Vancouver. Burnaby, it will tell you this lot is eligible for up to this many units. So that's nice. And then the frequent transit network map is on the bottom right. If you're close to any of these lines, you can get more density to 6 units. Okay, so here's some new updates for Burnaby. They have confirmed now that you can actually convert an existing dwelling or existing house into multiplex. This is awesome. I've actually had a few inquiries about this. Vancouver does not allow it. So you can't do a reno and convert it to multiplex. Burnaby, you could. Now, there's a whole bunch of rules around that, like meeting the current building code and all of that stuff, but at least there's a path forward for that. So that's nice. And then secondary suites do contribute to the total unit count. When this is important is when they calculate the fees on you, because even if a secondary suite, that counts as 1 unit, therefore there's a fee charge for that. Okay, so here's some typical scenarios that Burnaby allows you. It's similar and some different than Vancouver. This one, you've got 2 single-family dwelling units on the same lot, so 2 completely separate houses with a secondary suite. That's nice, all on the same lot. You can also have 1 duplex in the front of this diagram and then 1 single family at the back. So that's 3 units. And then you can have a duplex with secondary suites. That's 4 units, right? 2 duplex and 2 secondary suites. That's 4 units plus 1 single family at the back, 5 units total. And then you can have a triplex. So 3 of them all side by side. That's 3 units. You can have a multiplex. So 3 in front, 3 in back. That's 6 units. And you can have a duplex with secondary suite. So that's 2 duplex, 2 units. Secondary suites, 2 units. That's sort of 4, plus a single family home and a secondary suite, 2 more units for a total of 6 units. Now, okay, next slide, I'll tell you why that's important. This is an example of a diagram that we did for a site analysis. Basically, if you took a standard lot, 33 by 122 in Burnaby, we've put the setbacks in place here, and there's a lot coverage. So basically, if we were to max out our footprint, front building can be 1,200 square foot footprint, and then the back building can be 600 footprint. You can multiply that by as high as you're allowed. Assuming a perfectly flat lot, we can actually squeeze 4 levels into Burnaby now. So if you, sorry, 4 height, not 4 levels, 3 levels plus the roof. So you gotta allow a bit for that. But the beauty about this is if you take 1200 multiplied by 3 floor plates, and you take 600 multiplied by 2 floor plates, because at the back you can't go that high, you can actually get a huge density. I think when we calculate it, what does this say, Bruce? This is 1800. So on a 33 by 122, you can get 4 units. That's on average 1800 square feet units.
Yeah, so it actually, depending on the lot size and configuration, you can often get over 1.3 or 1.4. I think at that point, usually you're getting into kind of, does it make sense to build a unit this big? But yeah, Burnaby doesn't restrict it that way, which makes it definitely gives you a lot more flexibility. And you know, they're really not restricting the typology. I think on the previous slide, Eric had 6 different types, and there's actually more. If the lot's large enough, you could even do 4 separate stratified single families on it as well. So there's a lot of options in Burnaby, and I can foresee in the future we're going to be seeing a lot more product on the market in those type of different types of configurations, which are going to make a lot more financial sense than building a single family or a duplex.
Right. Okay. So here's the rates. Basically, they've laid out all of the little, well, not little, all of the different fees. So they've got transportation, water, drainage, sanitary sewer, parks, fire, DCC, ACC. The total proposed, you can see, is based on this. If you're doing low density, that's more than 2 units, and it includes single family and secondary suites and duplex, that's low density. If you're doing a multiplex, that falls into medium density. And then high density are like more towers and stuff, which is not the scope of this webinar. But basically, you're either a duplex, which is low density, or a multiplex, which is medium density. And then you will then be able to figure out what they're going to charge you. Oh, sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah, so they do give you credit for the existing home. So if you were to build a duplex and you had a single family that you were demolishing, you'd only pay the $81,000 once. If you're doing, say, a 3 unit and there was a single family, then you'd pay the $56,000 twice. So you do get a credit for the existing home. You don't have to pay for that. At least, obviously, it's a big number, but Burnaby, in my opinion, has made it much simpler than Vancouver. They have one number. Vancouver has about 8.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where the unit type counts, and just keep in mind, although your secondary suite cannot be stratified, it still counts as a unit when they count the fees. Okay, let's jump into Coquitlam. So Coquitlam is brand new. They enacted this in July this year. And this is kind of the table that they've got. Basically, they've given us 4 zones, R1, R2, R3, and R4. And there's a slightly different flavor for everyone. So let's jump into that. R1 is small scale residential. R2, they call it compact scale. R3 is transitional small scale. And then R4 is intensive. Now, just to simplify for everyone, R1 and R2 is the most flexible for SSMUH or multiplex because it allows up to 4 dwelling units. Now, R3 is limited to 2 principal dwelling units plus secondary suite. So if you are about stratifying to as many units as possible, don't look for R3. Look for R1 and R2. R4 is great for larger lots, and if you want 3+ units for development with higher density. So that gives you more, but you need a bigger lot. Okay. And then the floor area could be increased for another 430 square feet for parking. So they do have a bit of a parking exclusion for you. Let's go into this. So parking. Now, interestingly, Coquitlam, they allow tandem parking, which is front and back. That's nice because not many other cities allow that. So they allow that, but you do need to have parking. Whereas like Vancouver, for instance, you don't have to have parking. It's all a choice for you. Okay, then there's something called the legacy zone. So these are some of the old zones that they didn't turn into the SSMUH. It's RS1, RS3, and RS4. And actually RT1 and RT3. So if you are in Coquitlam in one of those lots, You could do a multiplex on it, but you have to go through either a rezoning. You have to jump through a few hoops, talk to the city about it. But just know that these zones could be done through some extra steps. Whereas the R1, R2, R3, R4 is now outright as of July. You can do multiplex on here. Okay, let's look at a bit about their permitting process. So, they've actually adopted the Vancouver permitting process, very similar. You do a first pre-screening inquiry, and then there's a pre-application process. You do have to take out a development permit, just like Vancouver. Once that's done, then you can take out a building permit, and then you can build. Okay, so very similar to Vancouver. Now, accessory units. So secondary suites, garden suites, there's a max of 4 total per lot. And that includes accessory units. So when we say your lot can go up to 4 units, you can do 2 principal dwellings with 2 secondary suites. That's 4 units. Okay. R3 is very limited. They can only have 2 principal dwellings max. And then there's no bonus for frequent transit network, unlike Burnaby, where if you're close to a frequent transit line, you have more extra density or extra units. No such thing in Coquitlam. Utilities, PMT, tree retention, that's all in, and you got to allow for that. Submission rezoning, they are, subdivision rezoning, they are both permitted in multiplex if you want to do that. And then development charges. So how they work is they're still all the regular offenders of the fees, TransLink, sewers, DCCs, ACCs, all of that stuff. And this is their chart. So they are like Burnaby, where they do it per unit. So basically, if you're doing single family, even if you're doing single family, there is now DCC. Before, there wasn't. So if you're thinking of doing single family, you're a bit late. You got to pay more now. Basically, 64,000 per unit for single family. Duplex, triplex, fourplex, multiplex, 43,000 per unit. And secondary suites count as a unit. Townhouse, apartments, and commercial, but that's not the scope of this webinar. So what you need to know, let me see here. Yeah, the city will provide you, once they assign a planner or a plan checker, then they'll assign the fees to you. So this is a bit more of an estimate right now. And then they do have all of the Metro van fees and all that stuff also. Okay, let's go through some housing configuration. So graphically, you can understand this a little bit better. In Coquitlam, you are allowed a single detached dwelling with secondary suite, and then you can have 2 garden cottages. Basically, it's a rear building, smaller in scale, but it could be stuck side by side like a duplex. And then you can have a duplex with secondary suites. You can have an up-down duplex with a carriage home at the back. So you're asking me what's different between a carriage home and a garden cottage? Similar, for us to simplify it, it's all a rear building. Carriage home is basically just 1 unit, small scale at the back. Cottage could be like a duplex tied together. Triplex, side by side by side. And then you have a front and back triplex or quadplex, I guess. This is the fourplex, front and back. All right, so now, interestingly, Coquitlam encourages everyone to use the standardized plans from the BC Housing Design Catalog. Those of you who have heard it, those of you who haven't, I'll show you next. But if you do adopt one of those designs, they will actually try to expedite your permitting process, which is nice. One thing to note, though, these designs aren't done. Like, they're really just very conceptual, just really designed to help people imagine what it could be. But then I would say it's like maybe 10 or 20% of the whole process of designing a home. You still need to get a professional, either a designer, architect, or or a draftsperson or engineer, or anyone that's capable of preparing a set of plans to finish it off for you. You still need structural. There will be civil and energy requirements. So let's show you what this looks like. This was launched, I think, last year, about a year ago. It's called the Standardized Housing Design Catalog. It's actually quite good, especially for like realtors helping clients understand what could be done on a house, or a homeowner looking at it for themselves. They have different sizes, different layouts, different bedrooms, that kind of stuff. So you can search that up quite easily. It's available online as a free resource. The province put it out. But basically, what you need to know about this is it's free, it's flexible, it's modular. The way that design is quite good, where it's really just modular. You can rotate it and do all that stuff. It reduces design time. I would say it reduces the first 10 to 20% of the process. So that's kind of what it is. It's customizable to a point. What else? Yeah, I think that's it. You still need to get a professional to come and help you with it. You know, we can definitely do that. Or if you like none of the plans, we can do a custom design for you.
Yeah, but it's a good starting point with your clients, especially for standard lots. Exactly opposite to what Eric's going to show on the next slide.
Yes.
But yeah, really good starting point for people who want some visual, especially because the product is all new, and it's really hard to drive down the street and point to that's a triplex, that's a quadplex. You know, that's this kind of configuration. So it's definitely a good resource, especially for realtors as you know, trying to help their clients imagine what their project could look like.
Right. Okay, so those are the main regulation changes. What we want to do now as a last segment is just to show you 3 case studies. So you can imagine, okay, what is this whole multiplex thing and what can it look like? We've actually got 3 of our own projects here, which is very different, very diversified. So let's jump into that. Bruce, why don't you help us with this first one?
Sure. So this project is, like I said, mentioned ago, is a highly irregular lot. This is kind of that pie-shaped lot where we've got a narrow frontage at the main street, and then quite a wide frontage at the alley. And so this one, I think the lot's about 9,600 square feet, or they're 96, 97. So we have a duplex, like a front back style duplex at the front of the property, and then we have basically 2 single family, completely detached homes at the rear of the property. We've just started construction on this. And one of the nice things with the lot's configuration, we were able to achieve 8 parking at the rear. We had a bit of issues with the city with some trees that we had to renegotiate and have a fairly lengthy time to figure out how they were being retained, transplanted, and things like that. And on a positive note for us, we, after going through electrical engineering, we did not need a pad-mounted transformer, at least as of right now. So we're quite excited about that. And yeah, this project is quite interesting. I think we did a great job with the our design team did a great job with doing a really great, unique design on you know, kind of that irregular shaped lot.
Yeah, when we design these multiplexes, it's very important to keep in mind private space and yard. So that's one thing we definitely keep in mind. All of these units will have their own private front yard, private backyard, patio. And because we're successful in challenging the city on their tree retention requests, we're able to keep 8 parking spots at the back, which is awesome. This is a West Side home, so that's going to be very important for the end user. One thing that's interesting about our group is we have a breadth of experience all the way from architecture design, interior design, landscape design, to construction, to development. This is one of the projects that is our own, and we've taken it end to end as a for market project, but a very unique product. Okay, so this one, these are some renderings here of this unit. So very tall now, you're allowed a good height. We took advantage of that, and you can see on the top left picture, every unit, except the rear building, every unit has a rooftop deck and a 3rd floor balcony. So that's just unbelievable. Modern design, private walkways, private yards. So it's going to be a really fun and exciting development in the Dunbar neighborhood. All right, so I'll talk a bit about this one. This one we're doing for a client. So this one we're designing and maybe we're building, we'll see. For us, what's unique about us is we really don't have to do everything end to end. We partner with a lot of builders who just do design. But sometimes clients, end user clients like this family is really 4 families, 4 brothers that came to us, and they needed help end to end. So we could do this whole thing for them if they want. Essentially, it's 4 units, 2 buildings, side-by-side duplex on the back building, and then well, front back. It's a corner site, so depending on which way you look at it, front, back, or side on the front building. They're Middle Eastern. They like more of the traditional design, which is fine. Yard space, you can see the color coding there. But basically R11, and the lot is pretty good size, 8,300. 68 feet wide. Each unit end up being about 2,100. keep in mind, this is not for the market. So they wanted a house size unit, every brother, and everything had to be equal. This was very important for their family, which is fine. We have a long experience dealing with custom homes. So we make sure the yards were equal, the floor areas were equal, all of that stuff. Where it's at, development permit is cleared now. Finally, we're fighting BC Hydro. So this is one of those challenging sites where this new pedantic rule with BC Hydro is actually not new. They're newly enforcing it, where if you have a high voltage line at the back, you have to push the building in. And we were fighting Hydro a lot, and finally we succeeded, or we have a way around it. So now the process is now clear. So we're clearing development and we're going into building permit. But yeah, this is a multi-generational design for 4 families, which is interesting. We do have a lot of use cases like this with our clients. That's the exterior of the building, 2 buildings. Okay, Bruce, you want to talk about this one?
Sure. This one is a actually really unique lot. It's 41 foot 10 by 229 feet deep. And as a single family or even a duplex, it would kind of be a very odd lot to build on. However, it's perfect for a 4-unit multiplex, and you can see we've got unit 1 and 2 at the front of the property, and then unit 3 at the 4 at the rear, and we're still able to achieve parking behind that as well. This one is fairly close to Main Street. It's another one of our own projects, and we're just we're going through the development permit application right now, and we're super pleased with the result of the design. And I think we did a really good job of utilizing the lot. Like I said, challenging site, but this configuration worked really well. And yeah, I think it's got the private yard space, and every unit has unique features. So obviously, the rear buildings are a bit lower. Maybe Eric can go over the renderings. Yeah, so front building. Nice and tall, 3 stories, and we got a beautiful balcony. We chose not to do rooftop on this one. We were trying to keep our costs a little bit more reasonable. Yes, we have a beautiful balcony, and house-like amenities on these. They're quite large units, and the rear units again are going to feel quite spacious just because of the larger floor plate. But really nice configuration, and we're quite excited. Hopefully, we'll start construction on this soon and get this one to market.